Therefore, obtain the help of God. I continue unto this day, witnessing both to small and great, saying none of other things than those which the prophets and Moses did say should come, that Christ should suffer, and that he should be the first that would rise from the dead, and should show light unto the people and to the Gentiles.
In a way, Paul had the capital audience here, in a sense. But Agrippa II had inherited rule over primarily Gentile areas in ancient Palestine. But he also appointed a Jewish high priest. And because of his background, he was considered an expert in Jewish customs. As Paul had shared his personal testimony with the Jewish mob in chapter 22, he shared his personal testimony with the crowd. Paul was cordial. Remember, Paul was cordial here. He took the opportunity to share his Damascus Road salvation experience. I think this is the third time that Paul had shared his Damascus Road experience, right? When he accepted Christ.
Well, they sure didn't want to kill him, didn't they?
No, yeah. Oh, gosh, yes. You talk about somebody, everybody, some people I've seen something happen to a dog, every time they just kind of nips at your heel. So, that's where you go. Well, that's the way it was with Paul, trying to nip him in his heels, trying to have him put to death. But Paul did not have a problem with talking to him. Whether it was King Agrippa or whether it was a homeless you might see on the street, he was cordial to him. And like I said, he could have raised his voice and made these demands and all this, but he was cordial and polite. And I'm thinking about, I may get one when I leave, but believe it or not, I've had 6 tickets in my life. But that don't mean I didn't deserve them. But I kept my mouth shut.
That's right.
I got a lot of warning tickets. But I think Paul realized he's going to speak his piece, but he's going to do it cordial in a way, and it's respectful. I remember speaking, growing up in high school, there was a lady here in town. She treated everyone the same. And it was, whether it was the one on the street, the governor, the mayor, and the president, she would talk to them the same, be cordial and nice, and made them feel important. I remember speaking with her on many occasions, and she always made me feel like I was the most important person in the room. And but she just had that personality. And I can remember, in kind of a short side story here, she was one time was the vice president of the national PTA, Parent and Teachers. That's not PTA anymore. But anyway, she went to the national convention, and they came to her and said our speaker couldn't show up, had some problems to come up, couldn't show up, couldn't speak. He said, "Could you speak?" She said, "Give me 10 minutes." Every 10 minutes went out there and spoke. She just had a gift. And like I said, it was more many people, one person. She was just made you feel important.
Who was she, Epic?
What?
Who was she? I've been here forever.
Lee Ledger.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, had Lee's Express shop.
Okay, that
Leroy
makes sense.
Ledger.
That makes sense. Yes,
Yeah.
I do, Lee.
Yeah, she was. She just had that gift. And like I said, I spoke. Her son was one of my best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I spent many nights during their home. I was just the most important person. And
She made everyone feel that way.
yeah, she made everyone feel that way. And I think that Paul was right here. He was making everyone feel at ease when he shared the gospel with them. But before Agrippa, he shared in the past, he was set on stamping out the false Christ. He was stamping out the way. In other words, he wanted his testimony. He said, I was just like the others, like the ones that are bringing these accusations against me. I was sent out. I had the orders. I I had the letter when I went to Damascus to arrest these people, bring them back to Jerusalem, put them on trial. But the change and encounter he experienced with Jesus, he made it about this. He began sharing the gospel with Jesus, the Gentiles in Damascus, Jerusalem, and every regions of Judea. Eventually, of course, God called him to missions. The disciple of Moses became a disciple of the Messiah, the one who fulfilled the law perfectly through the death and resurrection. In other words, he's become in of the resurrection of Christ. In other words, he was a disciple even this, went back to the Old Testament, he brought him back there, and Moses, he was following. I heard a good, sermon this morning, I think it was, Father Jeffers, about where do you go when you die? Some people say, well, what about the ones before Christ? He said, he said, you like when you get a credit card, so that works as pieces of plastic. You go to the store and buy something, use that card, it don't cost you anything. But if 30 days later, that bill comes to you. Well, in a way, he said, in a way, the prophets of old, they had that credit card, and then when Jesus Christ died, it was redeemed. In other words, it was paid. And but I thought, well, that was good. They're pre, like I said, they're pre-Calvary. They're pre the cross.
Hades was divided into two sections,
Yes.
paradise and place.
Right.
And then he took them to paradise and heaven where he ascended.
Yes.
Which was, I mean, it was paradise still.
Right. But they were saying the same as we, the prophets of old, the same as we were. They were saying the same as we were saying. But the disciples, but following Christ required him to carry the gospel to the Gentiles. In turn, they repent and turn to God. I think because of this, the Jews seized him in the temple and tried to put him to death. They were not unfamiliar to Paul. On each missionary journey, angry Jews protested his message and persecuted him personally. But the rejection of the gospel was based on the equality of Gentiles. God forbid they believed to us. And salvation was for them just as others. I read something, I looked and couldn't find it. But of course, the Jews considered them unclean. And if you touched one or something, you had to go through this ritual and ceremony to cleanse yourself. And I looked for it and I couldn't find it. But I don't know, maybe Brother Steve, I couldn't.
You had to go through ceremonial cleansing. You were considered unclean.
Yeah. I know you couldn't, well, of course, that wasn't to do with Gentiles, but you couldn't, that was the Nazarite. You couldn't touch a dead body or things such as that. You had to go through uncleanness. But anyway, I looked, couldn't find it. But it was something, there was this, they had to go through a certain ritual of being unclean because they'd come in contact with a Gentile. Of course, they accused Paul of bringing the Gentiles into the temple. No, he brought them into the outer courts. They were allowed to go to the outer courts.
The outer court was the court of the Gentiles. That's
as far as they could go.
Buying and selling took place.
Yeah. Well, there was some more false accusations they made up. Well, he took them on into the temple.
Not even close.
Yeah, not even close. But Christ died for all. So, Linda, if you read Romans 10:12.
There is no distinction between the Jew and the Gentile, for the same Lord is Lord over all of us, and he is abounding in richest blessings for all who call on him in faith and prayer.
That pretty well settles it.
Praise God.
He died for all.
Yes.
He died for all. I heard a comment, I've heard it before, but I heard a comment again this week. And I think Brother Steve had used it. The same spirit that rose, I said, the same spirit that rose Jesus out of the grave, rose the grave, is the same spirit that lives within us. Same spirit. But Paul had preached to the great and the small. It made no difference to Paul. Now, King Agrippa, Festus, was a man on the street Christ was preaching. But Christ was to suffer to fulfill his purpose as Savior. Yet as he first arose from the dead, Jesus also had the power to show light to all people living in darkness, whether Jew or Gentile. No matter our status or race or ethnicity, we must all turn from darkness to light. Paul used this example. That's why he kept sharing. He went from darkness to light. That great light that surrounded him, brighter than the sun. I can't imagine. The only thing I can kind of relate to it is you see lightning. And the light generated, the electric generated from a bolt of lightning. I forget to say how many cities can be power generated by one bolt of lightning. How many thousands in a city? It's just amazing. Yes.
Excuse me. Shortly after me and James married, we went out to sit on the front porch. Okay, in Long Beach, did you have that white light?
Yeah.
there was once just like from nowhere, it was it's lightning.
Yeah.
And I said, that's just like God's finger coming down to the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't touch anything, didn't cause anything, just something,
Mhm.
it was unspeakable.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like I said, that's the only thing I can kind of relate or compare. And that's not even compared to the bolt of lightning and the light it produces.
Didn't even thunder.
Yeah. But I remember I quit when I was in Christian Diners. On the counter bar, they were cleaning it out. The dirt come in there, cleaning it out. And I was at my mother's, and I heard this bolt. I mean, it sounded like it was right outside when it hit. And it hit within 100 yards of Seth and Brandon, and Seth and Tyler Christian, standing on that metal counter bar. And it just, well, like the God that they weren't struck. Yeah.
We had one come to our rooftop when we were sitting at dinner one evening with our two children. They were still in grade school. And before it hit, we all looked at each other and thought, why is their hair standing straight up?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, there was that much electricity in the air.
Yeah, I remember Ray Trevino, the golfer, professional golfer, he got struck with lightning. He said, you see them cartoons where they stick their finger in the light socket? That's true. He said, my hair just, he got hit twice. But anyway, let's go on. Someone reading verses 24 through 26.
And as he thus spake for himself, Festus said with a loud voice, Paul, thou art beside thyself. Much learning doth make thee mad. But he said, I am not mad. Most noble Festus, but speak forth the words of truth and soberness. For the king knoweth these things, before whom I speak freely. For I am persuaded that none of these things are hidden from him. For this thing was not done in a quarter.
Yeah. Paul was speaking for his own defense. Festus to a fit. We used to call it a conniption fit. But I saw one of the one of the ladies that was on one of the commentators on this program talking about something that their 3-year-old threw her bowl of spaghetti on the floor, and I thought that'd be the last time. She thought it was kind of cute, and I said, that'd be the last time. But I guess it threw a fit. But anyways, Festus was astonished that a learned scholar like Paul could actually believe that the dead would live again. That was something no intelligent Roman would accept. Unable to contain himself, he interrupted proceedings, shouting that Paul's tremendous learning had driven him insane. In other words, we have the phrase of an educated fool.
And there are those.
There are those. They're educated fools. Take them out of their element and they're lost.
No common sense.
Yeah, no common sense. Well, one said that the common sense is not very common anymore.
Just close on the road. People normally travel, make it easier, but I don't know where to go.
Yeah,
You'll see them.
right, exactly.
I've got to go down this road.
Mhm.
I'm gonna get to my house.
Oh, yeah.
You see that? I remember having it happen in Las Vegas in 1840. And the Swift truck had hit a sign and totally blocked the highway.
Those people.
And then Las Vegas has no fringe roads on the side of the highway. By the grace of God, the guy in front of me got on the radio and goes, hey guys, I'm from here, follow me.
Well, that happened when we were coming back from Tennessee. There was a wreck in Waco. There's always wrecks in Waco. And yeah, 35. Well, we knew the back way and to get around. But like you said, some of them just stuck. And
See, nobody knows how to get around the ones that people now.
I know.
There
Yeah.
goes. Yeah, we do.
Oh yeah. And like I said, if we had the Whitman stuff, if we hadn't known the pathway to take it around. But you go to Temple, you see all these tracks going off the road. getting no vaccine.
He's the only one that gets stopped by the cops for doing it. One time he got stopped by
I
the
wanted to
cops.
before that before.
But you see it everywhere, when you're out in the temple. But Jesus was accused of being crazy or out of his mind. He was accused of being possessed, Jesus was accused of being possessed with Beelzebub in Mark 3:22. Remember when he healed, he healed that by the power of Satan with Beelzebub. But Paul replied to Festus, he was not insane. Paul kept his cool. I was real proud of Paul when he kept his cool. No, Paul did not shout back at Festus, but answered in calmness and respect. I'm not bad, but speak the words of truth and reason. But Paul responded, the word I am stating to the king is known that the death of Jesus and the Christians' claim that Jesus rose from the dead were common knowledge in God's time. He further stated his message was the product of truth and soberness. I like that he added soberness. It was truth and soberness. I'm sober. I'm not drunk or anything. I'm telling you the truth. One big reason for his confidence was the knowledge that King Agrippa understood matters, Jewish traditions, and religious practices. Paul knew Agrippa's background, and he believed the king was aware of the events surrounding Jesus and the rise of the early church. The apostles also counted Agrippa's understanding of the Old Testament, preaching and prophecies. Therefore, Paul was more concerned with Agrippa's opinion than that of Festus. In other words, I don't care what Festus is saying. Don't bother me. What? I'm listening.
I said, that's right, nobody did, and I meant that both ways.
Yeah. Well, how many times we've all in situations that nobody's listening?
That's right.
All the time, yeah. Therefore, Paul, like I said, Paul thought it might be possible for Agrippa to confirm Paul's testimony. So he directed his speech toward the king. He also hoped Agrippa might recognize Jesus as the Messiah. The door was open for Agrippa. It was up to him. Scholars are divided about the meaning of "in a corner" verses 26. Some focus at the fact that Christianity was not a secret society or religious group isolated from the world. Others believe Paul was emphasizing the rapid growth and influence of the early church over a short period of time. Either way, he made it clear that the church had been having a documented impact on culture. It was not hidden. In other words, we had to put it in the corner. It's open. The movement of Christ, the movement of Christianity, the way, as Paul and Luke wrote some, it's not hidden. We hadn't put it in the corner. We're not having that little life. I'm not going to let it shine.
The Jewish Bible reads on that one, verse 26, for the king understands these matters, so to him I express myself freely, because I am sure that none of these things have been hidden from him.
Yeah.
After all, they didn't happen in some back alley.
Right. Yeah, that's right. It wasn't hidden. It's something that, like I said, it's not hidden. It's not. Now we do. Unfortunately, there's areas of the world they have to go underground.
Yeah.
For fear of their life, torture, and it's sad.
But yet it's still not hidden.
No, it's still not hidden.
It's still
Right.
not hidden.
Yes.
It's there.
Yes. If you imagine, and people today here would think it was terrible. In places they tear out pages of the Bible to share.
Yeah.
They
Yes.
just have one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When
It's
I
sad.
was a teenager, I was listening to a program. I don't remember what country, but it was an underneath church, and that Bible was totally not torn up, but being used so much by all the people.
Sure. Yeah.
It was falling apart.
Yeah. I don't know if I read the book, if y'all read the book years ago, the God Smuggler. He smuggled Bibles in
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
into China.
And in Islam countries,
Yeah.
people risk, believers, missionaries risk their life on a daily basis.
He said that he went to a checkpoint one time and his back seat was full of boxes of Bibles. The guard looked in the back, opened up and looked, most of them open. I mean, God was there. He said another time he went through this lady, the guard, she took his Bible and went through it and handed it back to her. She'd never seen a Bible. She didn't know what it was. But God works. I mean, God's at work.
That's right.
But their word was not hidden. But like Paul said, we're not hiding here, so we had to put it in the corner. We had to put it in the back alleys or the streets. It's open. It's open to everyone. So someone read down verses 27 through 29.
King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? I know that thou art believest. And Agrippa said to Paul, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. And Paul said, I would to God that not only thou, but also all that hear me this day, were both almost, and altogether such as I am, except these bonds.
The question Paul rose to Agrippa was a loaded question, really, and put him in a dilemma. If he affirmed his belief in the prophets, he would also have to admit that what they taught about Jesus' death and resurrection was true. And admissions such as this would make him appear foolish among their own friends. To deny the prophets would outrage his Jewish subjects. He's got between the rock and hard place. I can see Paul looking him straight in the eyes. Do you believe the prophets? No, Paul didn't give the king time to answer the question. I know you do. If Agrippa believed that God had spoken through the prophets, which Paul felt sure that he did, then it was reasonable to believe that God would fulfill the promises revealed to the prophets by sending his Messiah. Now, Paul was not suggesting that Agrippa had accepted the testimony that the risen Lord, was the Messiah sent from God. But accepting the message of the prophets would be the first logical step in understanding that God had done for Jesus. Paul was offering to Agrippa the opportunity to take the next logical step, to move from waiting for God's Messiah to one who accepted Jesus as Messiah. And verse 28 reads different, and I was always kind of confused with this. And I think some translations have said, "You nearly convinced me," or something. But verse 28 reads differently in different translations, and it kind of it says, "In a short time, you will persuade me." Persuade me to become a Christian. It's the New American Standard. Are you going to persuade me to become a Christian so easily? Christian Standard Bible. You almost persuade me to become a Christian. That's the New King James. So they're all a little bit, different way. And I just always think, well, he's about to become a Christian. No. He said, are you trying to persuade me? It's kind of like when they say we witnessed to someone and said, and looked with kind of like a smirk on their face, saying, you mean you're trying to convince me of this?
He was deflecting a decision.
He was deflecting, yes, that's good. Yes. Yes, one translation may mean, do you think you can convince me to become a Christian in such a short time? Yeah. Yes. Agrippa was trying to evade Paul's question. On one hand, he did not try to contradict his belief in the prophets. On the other hand, he had no interest in opening the door for further evangelization from Paul. So close. He was so close. He hit so far. Easily, and the Christian Standard Bible could be interpreted as, it can't be that easy. I mean, we've heard, well, it can't be that easy. I got to do something. I got to get better. What? Too good to be true. And I think that's what he's trying to say. Oh, this is too easy. I'm going to have to do more than that. I got to get all my life cleared up, including all my past, and all my bad habits, and all that stuff, and before I become a Christian.
That's a common thing, though.
Yes.
Sure.
Nike used to run with Geronimo,
Mm-hmm.
war buddies. And after the tribes were settled in, Nike became a Christian.
Yeah.
And he was trying to convince Geronimo. Geronimo's like, I can't. God's never going to forgive me for all
Yeah.
the things I've done.
Mm-hmm.
It's a firm belief, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is what a lot of people, God, he couldn't forgive me for all that, what I've done, how bad I was. And it's sad. And I think that's where the river was. He said, no, it can't be this easy.
You did a lot of that from little kids growing up. You're going to be good. You better be good. Daddy won't get you.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. It's true. And that's gonna get me. I can't, that's just too easy.
You know, sometimes you've done so many things so wrong in your life, it's hard to believe that,
Yeah.
Yes.
that he can turn you around and
Yeah.
forgive you.
Mhm.
It takes time.
Sure.
If you believe this one's the key.
Yeah.
If you believe that Jesus is who he all you're talking about getting to the light.
Right. Yeah.
But problems are one thing, but when you've grown up and you've done things and things have happened, it's
Yeah.
hard to believe that you grown out of that.
Yeah, it's kind of like I said last Sunday, you know, I attended that church, I was working out in West Texas, preacher said it was a contest between all the men who was worse before they were saved.
But you know, he works on you.
Yeah.
You let him, he works on you, and like that, when I share my testimony to a lot of young girls, I tell them, I go, this is where I was, and this is where the Lord has brought me
Yeah.
to now,
Yeah.
but it takes time.
Mhm. Yeah, I always wanted, when I was in early, I went to, it's kind of not like this mini seminar or something. And I'll never forget, he said, you should be able to tell someone your testimony in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's and I don't know what you've done around the Lord, but I know what it's done for me.
Yeah.
And that's as simple as that.
And it is.
You don't beat them over the head with the Bible and like,
No, you don't have to.
no.
In fact, when I was 19, I had my first experience in the medical field, which I went to work in a nursing home and became a nurse.
Yeah.
As a young Christian woman, I found out the older you get, the more sin you have accumulated, and the harder it is to lead someone to Christ.
Yep.
That's why it's so important
Sure.
that we get our kids, our babies in church or get them in children's church and vacation Bible school and witness to them, because if they accept Christ truly, totally, and with full belief, then, you know, it's hard to believe us when you become an older, harder adult.
Well, sometimes I think, sometimes when I share Christ too, is sometimes when they see what you've been through and what the Lord has brought you out
Oh,
from,
yes,
and
yes.
how your life has changed, that will bring them to the Lord. But you can't talk down to them.
Oh, no,
You
never.
know, but
Well, I think like here was Paul felt knew the situation. He couldn't go in there demanding, making demands and stuff. But the most important person to Paul, back up, Paul was never one to be concerned about numbers. The most important person to Paul was the person or people standing in front of him at the moment. Like that lady that's talking about him. Whoever she was speaking to, that was the most important person. Because this was God's word, he refused to be discouraged by Agrippa's negative response. Instead, he left the door open in hopes that he might get a chance to continue the conversation and extend the invitation. But not only Agrippa would respond to the message, but all who heard the words. Agrippa, there was others there. Festus and others. Once Paul was like them and held in the bonds of sin, with no hope was freed by the fire of Jesus Christ. They too could experience the same freedom from. Got a few minutes in comments.
I think it's one of he said, I thought about it after I said that his nephew went to Peter. He sent him to the Roman command.
Roman command.
Who sent him to Caesarea.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, I remember that. I thought that was interesting.
I think a lot of people, when they've done all so many sins,
Yeah.
you know, and on what all I've done and all the things that I've done over the years, and you have a person who's not been through all of that. Well, without Christ, neither one of them gets into the kingdom.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right.
I look at people like that and I go, wow. I go, that's awesome.
People too, I've shared this before, but there was a movie on TV years ago, and I've shared this about this young couple who get married, and she was Catholic and he was a Jew. And the mother, the woman that was Catholic, she was just beside herself. But her husband gave a confession before the wedding, because he hadn't been in years. He was a Catholic, but not a practicing Catholic. So he finally agreed and went to Catholic, and there he is sitting here, and he just said, I guess I've done something wrong. I can't think of anything.
years old when my granddad died. I'm 40. But you know, he always read his Bible, and I would love to know how to share that Bible. You're 8 years old, everything.
I think this lesson and just the life of Paul speaks to what we all already know, that God knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Paul had the education and the background to know how to speak to all different kinds of people and how to control his feelings, his emotions, and each situation.
Yeah.
But as you said, God did not make him change. He gave him an opportunity, and he accepted Christ.
I remember there were before truck driving, I never talked to anybody in stores or anything. Now, I talk to everybody.
She just said she used to be so shy that she didn't even go to the store by herself.
But now people, where were you in the store? I go, I was sharing with somebody in the store. Because I love sharing and talking. You talk to everybody the same way, but
I think the New Testament is so full with Paul's
It
experiences
is.
that it goes back to show that we've all had our Damascus road
Right.
experience. That's what you should share.
that's right.
Sure, we all experience that life.
Exactly.
We all see a lot of this.
Yeah.
Even when
We
you
all
meet
all.
somebody like a soldier, an HEB, that's where we go a lot. And they stop and they listen because they need to be respected. Because they got that uniform for a certain
I was talking to the younger,
in their protection.
I was thinking about the Bible, it reminded me of Ed Young, Second Baptist. He'd had complaints. Of course, his Bible, he just got a little podium like that. And he walks around and holds his Bible like this, walk up there and preach it down, and he's had complaints. You're not respecting the Bible.
You know, you mentioned about Paul's passion, knowing how to reel it in. I forgot what movie Vince Vaughn said this, but you can be passionate without being an idiot. But
Yeah.
Paul was passionate without being an idiot.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right. We can be an idiot. Any other comments? Well, Sean, will you dismiss this?
Yes, Heavenly Father, we just thank you, Lord, this morning, Lord. Thank you for so outside. Thank you for the lesson that we have just learned, Lord, that just pray that you allow us to relish the word that was spoken this morning, Lord, that you will allow us to find a way to apply it to our lives, Lord, and glorify your name. In Jesus' precious name, I pray.